The night everything ends. I've never spoken like this before. And there's a reason this message found you tonight. This is not background noise. This is not another motivational video you half listen to while scrolling. Something has already been set in motion. And whether you're ready or not, tonight marks the end of a chapter you cannot return to. You didn't arrive here by accident. You didn't randomly click this. You were pulled, summoned, drawn here by a force that only responds when someone has crossed an invisible line. And you crossed it, quietly, without applause, without witnesses, without even realizing the moment it happened. Tonight is not symbolic. It is literal. Something in your life ends when this day closes. Not because you failed, because you passed. Before the sun sets and this night completes its cycle, a version of you dissolves. A season closes. A door seals behind you so permanently that even if you tried, you could never walk back into the life you were living before. The waiting ends tonight. The testing ends tonight. The preparation phase, the one that drained you, isolated you, broke you down piece by piece, that phase expires. And what comes next does not ask for permission. I need you to hear this clearly. This is not a threat. It's not fear-based. It's not doom. It's notification. The universe does not whisper at moments like this. It alerts. You are standing at a threshold, a point of no return, where something must die so something greater can finally breathe. And whether you consciously chose this or not, your choice has already made the decision. The version of you that goes to sleep tonight will not be the version that wakes up tomorrow. That might sound dramatic, but if you feel it in your chest, that quiet pressure, that strange sense of finality mixed with relief, then you already know I'm telling the truth. There is a reason you felt restless lately. A reason things stopped fitting. A reason old patterns started feeling unbearable instead of familiar. A reason your tolerance for nonsense, disrespect, stagnation, and emotional weight suddenly dropped to zero. It's because the countdown already started. Something has been watching you, not judging you, observing. Every decision you made when no one was clapping. Every time you chose to keep going when quitting would have been easier. Every moment you stayed silent instead of reacting. Every boundary you held, even when it cost you people. All of it was being noted. And now the observation phase is over. Tonight is when the results begin. But here's the part most people misunderstand. Endings like this don't come with chaos. They come with clarity. This is not your life falling apart. This is your life snapping into alignment. What's ending tonight is not something you should fight to keep. It's the version of your life that required you to shrink, explain, tolerate, and survive. It's the chapter where you were constantly proving your worth. It's the season where you were strong for everyone else while quietly bleeding alone. That version of reality has nothing left to teach you, and that's why it's being removed. If you're honest with yourself, you felt this coming. In your dreams, in your body, in the way silence started feeling louder than noise. This message didn't arrive early. It didn't arrive late. It arrived at the exact moment your soul could finally hear it. And I need you to understand something important before we go any further. Nothing you are about to experience is random. Nothing is punishment. Nothing is being taken from you. What's happening is consequence. Not negative, not positive, earned. Because choices compound, integrity compounds, endurance compounds. And you've been compounding something powerful for a very long time. Tonight is the night it reaches critical mass. That's why this feels heavy. That's why it feels serious. That's why part of you wants to look away, while another part of you cannot stop listening. This is activation, and activation requires awareness. So, before we move deeper, I want you to do one thing. Not for me, for yourself. If you feel this shift, if something in you knows this is real, type "I am ready" in the comments. Not as hope, not as affirmation, as consent. Because words are permission slips. And tonight, permission matters. What happens next depends on what you're willing to release and what you're finally willing to receive. This is the last night of the old world, and once we continue, there is no going back. The identities that had to die before anything new could enter your life. Something had to be stripped away. Not gently, not gradually, but completely. This is the part of the journey most people never talk about, because it's where illusions die. And not everyone survives that. You didn't just go through hard times. You went through identity deaths. Versions of you that could not come forward with you were quietly dismantled, and each one hurt more than the last. The first identity that had to die was the one that believed love meant endurance. The version of you that stayed too long, explained too much, forgave without repair, hoped without evidence. You learned this lesson through abandonment, not dramatic abandonment, silent abandonment. The kind where people don't even argue anymore. They just disappear. That experience rewired you. It forced you to sit alone with questions that have no easy answers. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? What do I lack? Most people turn that pain inward and let it rot. You didn't. You stayed. You felt it. You grieved. And then something inside you refused to collapse. That refusal is why you're still here. The second identity that had to die was the one that needed to be seen to feel real. You entered a season where nothing reflected back to you. No validation, no praise, no visible progress. Just effort in the dark. You were building without witnesses, changing without applause, growing without proof. That kind of silence drives people insane. It makes them quit, makes them perform, makes them abandon their truth for attention. But you learned how to hear yourself. You learned how to trust something internal when nothing external responded. That killed the version of you that needed permission. The third identity that had to die was the one that believed loyalty was mutual. You saw faces change, masks fall, motives reveal themselves. People you protected exposed you. People you trusted tested you. People you defended betrayed you. And that moment, that realization, it could have turned you cold. It could have hardened you. It could have taught you to close your heart forever, but it didn't. You learned discernment instead of bitterness, boundaries instead of walls, wisdom instead of cynicism. That identity, the one who trusted blindly, had to die, so the one who trusts clearly could be born. Then came the most confusing death of all, the identity that needed to be understood. You changed, and instead of celebrating it, people questioned it. They called your boundaries arrogance, your standards cruelty, your growth selfishness. And you stood there wondering if you were wrong, if maybe you should soften, shrink, explain. But you didn't. You learned something sacred. That being misunderstood by people committed to misunderstanding you is not a failure. That realization killed the version of you that over-explained. Next came the slow death, the exhausting one. Patience, waiting while others advanced, waiting while nothing moved, waiting while the clock ticked and the doubt screamed. This is where most people surrender to lesser lives. They settle, they numb, they accept almost. You didn't. You waited without quitting, trusted timing without evidence, believed without reassurance. That killed the version of you that rushed. Then came temptation, old lives knocking, old lovers resurfacing, old patterns offering comfort. not because they were meant to return, but because they were checking if you had changed. You said no, not loudly, not dramatically, but firmly. That killed the version of you that romanticized the past. And finally, the hardest death, the identity that survived by self-betrayal. You learned to choose yourself, even when it disappointed others. To protect your peace, even when it labeled you difficult. To honor your needs, even when it looked selfish. That death hurt, because it cost you approval, but it saved your soul. Each of these deaths qualified you, not spiritually, energetically. The universe does not elevate potential. It elevates capacity, and capacity is built through loss, through restraint, through integrity. That's why this didn't happen earlier. You couldn't carry what's coming before now. These deaths weren't cruel. They were necessary. Because what's coming next cannot coexist with who you used to be. And tonight, the last remnants fall away. The old identities release. The old contracts dissolve. You don't need to fight it. You already survived it. What comes next doesn't test who you are. It reveals it. And once that begins, there is no return. The season that is ending, what ends tonight, is not a relationship, not a job, not a phase you should mourn. What ends tonight is a season. And seasons do not end because you failed them. They end because they gave you everything they had. You are not losing something. You are completing something. There is a difference. And that difference changes everything. This is where people panic, because endings have been taught as punishment. But this ending carries no chaos, no collapse, no destruction. It arrives quietly, decisively, with finality. What's ending tonight is the season of testing, the part of your life where every step felt heavy, where progress required sacrifice, where growth demanded isolation, where nothing arrived without resistance. You are done proving. You are done being evaluated, done being shaped by pressure, done being refined by pain. The universe does not keep testing what has already passed, and you passed. What's ending tonight is the version of your life where survival was the focus, where strength was mandatory, where softness felt unsafe, where rest felt irresponsible. You lived in readiness mode, always alert, always bracing. That state kept you alive, but it cannot take you forward, so it dissolves. What's ending tonight is isolation, not the quiet kind, the heavy kind, the loneliness of being ahead, the exhaustion of seeing what others couldn't, the ache of walking a path with no mirrors. You were not alone because you were unworthy. You were alone because alignment hadn't caught up yet. That gap closes now. What's ending tonight is confusion, the second guessing, the inner debates, the constant wondering if you heard right, if you chose right, if you waited too long or not long enough. That fog was temporary. It was part of the test. Clarity does not arrive before readiness. It arrives because of it. And readiness has been proven. What's ending tonight is your tolerance for misalignment. The relationships that drained you, the spaces that shrank you, the patterns that asked you to betray yourself quietly. You didn't outgrow them accidentally. Your nervous system evolved. Your frequency shifted. What once felt manageable now feels impossible. Not because you're fragile, but because you're integrated. What's ending tonight is the identity shaped by survival, the version of you built in response to trauma, the self that adapted instead of expressed, the one who learned how to endure instead of expand. That identity kept you alive. Honor it, but it cannot walk with you into what's next. And this is the part you need to understand deeply. This ending is not optional. You already crossed the line. There is no returning to who you were. even if you tried. Awareness alone prevents it. You see too much now. You feel too clearly. You know yourself too well. A regression would feel like suffocation. So, if you feel grief, let it pass. If you feel fear, let it move through. If you feel relief, trust it. Because relief is the body recognizing safety. This season is not being taken. It is being closed. And closure does not ask permission. It arrives when the lesson is complete. Tonight is that moment. You don't need to dramatize it. You don't need to ritualize it. You don't need to cling or resist. Simply acknowledge it. Say goodbye to what carried you this far. Thank it for its function. Release it without bitterness. Because what's ending tonight made you, but what's beginning next requires a different foundation. And that foundation is finally ready. The weight lifts here. The struggle loosens. The pressure fades. Not because life becomes shallow, but because you become stable. This is graduation. And what comes after graduation is not rest. It is application. The real work begins next. But for now, let the ending complete. You've earned that much. What begins now? After endings, people expect chaos. After collapse, they brace for emptiness. But that's not what follows completion. What follows is receiving. Not because you asked louder, not because you waited longer, but because you finally built the capacity to hold what was always meant for you. This is where the rhythm of life changes. You are no longer pushing, no longer forcing, no longer chasing outcomes that keep slipping just out of reach. The resistance you felt wasn't punishment. It was calibration. And calibration is finished. What begins now is alignment. Things that once felt complicated start resolving themselves. Doors that required effort begin opening without explanation. Conversations land differently. People respond differently. Opportunities arrive without urgency or struggle. Not because the world changed overnight, but because you did. What begins now is favor, not favoritism. Favor, the kind that shows up as timing, as right place, right moment, as support appearing exactly when needed. Favor doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself through ease. What begins now is clarity, not the loud, frantic kind, the quiet kind, the kind that settles in your body before it ever forms words, the kind that removes doubt instead of arguing with it. Soon, very soon, you'll wake up knowing, not guessing, not hoping, knowing. You'll know what to build. You'll know what to stop carrying. You'll know which direction is no longer negotiable. That knowing becomes your compass. What begins now is connection, not quantity, resonance. People who meet you and feel familiarity instead of friction. People who don't require explanation. People who don't compete with your growth. They recognize it. These connections arrive naturally, without performance, without effort, because you finally stopped broadcasting survival energy. What begins now is abundance. Not only money, though that shifts too. Abundance of space, abundance of time, abundance of energy. You'll notice you're no longer depleted by your own life. Joy returns in small, quiet ways. Peace becomes less conditional. Scarcity dissolves because you no longer negotiate with fear. What begins now is creative flow. Ideas arrive faster than doubt can interrupt them. Projects unstuck themselves. Expression feels clean again. You're no longer blocking what wants to move through you. What begins now is peace. Not numbness, not detachment. Peace. The kind that exists even when life isn't perfect. The kind that doesn't disappear under pressure. This peace becomes your foundation. And finally, what begins now is power. Not dominance, not control, presence. The kind of power that doesn't need to speak loudly, that shifts rooms without effort, that commands respect without demanding it. This power doesn't prove, it embodies. But understand this: receiving requires responsibility. You are no longer being shaped. You are being trusted. What enters your life now expects stewardship, discernment, integrity. This is why not everyone receives at this level, because capacity must come before access. And capacity has been built. If things feel quieter right now, that's not emptiness. That's space being prepared. If things feel slower, that's integration. Nothing is missing. Nothing is wrong. What's beginning now does not rush. It arrives, and it builds momentum naturally. You don't need to grab it. You don't need to chase it. You only need to stay present enough to recognize it. Because this season responds to awareness. And awareness you already have. The next part will explain how this activation unfolds in real time, how the shift becomes visible, and why the next 24 to 48 hours matter more than you think. Activation and the point of no return. This is where everything becomes real. Up until now, you've been listening, feeling, recognizing. But what happens next is not theoretical. It is experiential. Because once activation begins, life responds. In the next 24 to 48 hours, you will notice shifts, not dramatic ones, precise ones, a conversation that lands differently, a delay that suddenly protects you, a message that arrives at the exact moment you needed confirmation, a problem that resolves itself without effort. These are not coincidences. They are calibrations. The universe doesn't shout when alignment locks in. It confirms. You may also notice something else. People respond to you differently. Not everyone. The sensitive ones, the aligned ones. They listen more closely. They pause before speaking. They treat you as if something has shifted. Because it has. Your energy has stabilized. Your presence has weight now. And with that comes a truth most people are unprepared for. Not everyone will celebrate this version of you. Those who benefited from your old self may resist. They may question, withdraw, test boundaries. This is not punishment. It is sorting. Do not negotiate with it. Do not explain yourself back into smaller spaces. Let alignment do its work. The people meant to walk with you will adjust. The rest will remove themselves. That is not loss. That is accuracy. Now listen carefully. What you are stepping into does not ask you to rush. It asks you to remain conscious. Tonight, before you sleep, acknowledge what has ended. Not with regret, with gratitude. Thank the season that carried you. Honor the strength it required. Then release it. You don't need ceremony. You need consent. Then welcome what is beginning. Not with demand, with readiness. Say internally, I am available for what aligns. And then rest. Sleep is not avoidance. It is integration. Your subconscious will do more tonight than effort ever could. When you wake up, you may not feel euphoric. You may feel clear, grounded, still. That stillness is power. This is where people make mistakes. They expect fireworks, but real activation feels like certainty. Quiet, unshakable. From this point forward, there is no return to who you were. Not because you are forcing change, but because awareness prevents regression. You cannot unsee what you see now. You cannot unknow what has settled. Your life is no longer forming. It is unfolding, and unfolding requires participation. Choose integrity over urgency, presence over performance, alignment over approval. This is how the future locks in. Before we close, I want you to understand this. You were not overlooked. You were prepared. Every delay sharpened you. Every loss refined you. Every quiet season built capacity. You are not late. You are exact. Your success is no longer a possibility. it is a trajectory. So if this message resonates, not emotionally but internally, type "abundance is moving toward me" in the comments. Not as affirmation, as recognition, because words mark thresholds. And this threshold has been crossed. The old world is closed. The new one has already begun. You are not waiting anymore. You are arriving.